now. All righty. Good morning. This is Sports for Real with Coach Hall. Got a few minutes to kill, so what better time to talk about sports? Football is always on the brain, even though that the NBA is winding down their playoff chase. Then you also have the fact that Final Fours tip off this week. You have the ladies tipping off on Friday, and then the men coming back on Saturday. So all weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, we're going to be crowning champions, man. And like I said, the NBA is winding down, trying to solidify their final playoff participants. I believe Houston clinched last night, so should be pretty interesting all the way into June. But I talked the other day about college football and the fact that Deion Sanders in Colorado had this deal to where they were going to scrimmage NFL-like with Syracuse. What I mean by that is, when they have these NFL preseason games, all the public sees is the end product, meaning the game itself. But what you don't see behind the scenes is that these teams have been practicing against each other all week. So John, he wants to bring this to the college level. Now, it's nothing new. He's not the first one to think of that. He's just the latest, and he presented the idea in a time where it's quite possible. However, the NCAA rejected that proposal and citing reasons of unfair recruiting advantages and blah, blah, blah. Well, you know that the NCAA is steadily losing control over the things that take place with the institutions. Case in point, the college football playoff, they got nothing to do with that. So the question is, do they really have much authority left? Well, as people have been thinking this for a while, Mike Gundy, football coach at Oklahoma State, he put words to it. He was talking about how great it would be if colleges could scrimmage against one another. And if they could scrimmage against one another, how much of an advantage that would be. And he also brought up a great point. Alabody, hello. He also brought up a great point. He said that in the era where the great rivalries are dying now because of these new conference alignments that you have, teams like Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, that rivalry is going away. What better way to revive that rivalry than by playing against these guys in the spring? Hey, I didn't even think of that, but he's absolutely correct. But he went further than that. Like I said, he put words to it. He pretty much came out and questioned whether the NCAA had the right to determine if these teams could do such a things. Not only that, Gundy also said, well, what if these teams went and did it anyway? What can the NCAA do about it? Or in other words, what are you going to do about it if we did it anyway? Well, that's a great question. What kind of punishment would they get? Would it be relevant? Well, in the age of NIL, when these players can move around and do what they want to do, and the NCAA really can't do much about it, why not throw something in like a spring scrimmage game? Something else they probably can't do anything about it. And for him to come out and say that and put words to the thoughts that people have been thinking, NCAA, this is a sinking ship, man, and they're halfway down. Only thing holding them up is that, the back end of the ship that's going down is real light. Most of the heavy stuff, is not strong enough to pretty much sink them yet. But the NCAA appears to be a ship that's about to be submerged, kind of like the Titanic. And Unlike the Titanic, nobody's going to be looking for it once it's gone. JC, how you doing, man? Good morning there, Mr. Christopher Bristol. Nice for you guys to pop in on me again. I asked the question, should colleges be allowed to scrimmage another, whether it be spring practice or fall practice? When I played college, the coach always would say, we're going to have this great scrimmage and jobs on the line and so on and so forth. But what he couldn't say was the obvious. You've been practicing against these guys for a couple of weeks now. You pretty much know what you can do to beat this guy, and you know what you could do to try to not get beat like you've been getting beat other times. So you got to try to minimize as much as possible. But that guy knows you and you know him. But if you're playing against another team, then you can get a better picture of what kind of football team you're actually going to have. They do that in NFL. They do that in high schools. The only league that they don't do it in is the NCAA. And Dion and Fran Brown, they have decided to take a step to try to do just that. And Mike Gundy is saying, now that you've been rejected by the NCAA, why not go ahead and just do it anyway, just to see what they're going to do? Same kind of stuff that you see on the street. Let's hit this guy in the mouth and back up, see what he's going to do. How he reacts determines everything. And for Colorado and Syracuse to have a scrimmage, that would be punching the NCAA in the mouth, daring them to do something about it. And Gundy pretty much saying that they really can't do much about it. He didn't come out and specifically say that, but when he questioned the fact if they can do anything about it, that's pretty much what he's doing. So when you have underlings in the world, they start questioning leadership. Leadership has already lost control. And in this case right here, everything that seems to happen with this NCAA versus House, having to pay the players, and no real justification over the years for doing that, and all the billions and trillions they made off these athletes. Now they got to pay them, and that was just the major shot. Now they're picking at them from smaller areas, and it's just going to be a while before this ship sinks all the way. And it's not just the NCAA. The same thing is happening in say Florida, the Florida High School Athletic Association, the same way. They're picking at that too. So when you start coming up with these schools like a Mount Verd and leagues like that skirt around the associations, it's pretty much telling you that high school, these associations don't have the control that they used to have. And as long as they keep trying to keep things operating in the older fashion, the more these kind of things are going to keep popping up. And it's just a matter of time before these state institutions go the way of the NCAA. So the question is, what can the NCAA do to try to stop their sinking? The only thing left I see for them to do is to go to Washington and get congressional help, which some colleges have done, some coaches have tried to do, trying to maintain control of the NIL thing, because they don't want the players to have that power when they start getting that money. And when players start getting that power, what they do is kind of like the NBA. They get these big contracts, and then they start coming up with these ideas about load management. You sign them to guaranteed contracts. They've already started getting checks. So what you going to tell them? You got to recoup your investment, right? Well, these players understand that. So they're going to maximize the situation as much as they can. Look at Joel Embiid. Yeah, I know he's injured, and I know he's had injury problems, but you sign him to these monster deals anyway. What's he making? $65 million a year to play about 20 games? Now he's out for the rest of the year. He may come back when he gets ready next year. You're going to check another $65 million. And it's my understanding that he's got an option to pick up another year after that for another $65 million. If you Joel Embiid, you straight. You might not never play again, just like Greg Oden. So the athletes, once they start making that money, things start to change. And you can see that happening with the NCAA. These guys are changing teams every year because they can, and it's all about the better deal. And because of that, the way that you've been seeing things like the NCAA tournament, all the major upsets that you would have normally when a program rises with a group of players that have been together 4 or 5 years, now instead of 4 or 5 years, it might be 1 or 2, because in your second year, you averaging 25 points a game. And look what you did against this Division I school over here that we couldn't do nothing with. man, let me go over here and sign this guy. And that's happening all over the place. So when the smaller players are being poached to go to bigger schools, the little colleges, the athletic programs just might be on the way out the door. And I talked about that the other day with Michael Vick in his situation at Norfolk State. He can develop them, but if they get too good, Virginia or somebody else that's around them, they're noticing that too. So they're going to come with $800,000-$900,000 deal or whatever, the same kind of money that Norfolk State can't pay, and they're going to be in trouble. So that's just the way it goes. Rex, what's going on, man? Ain't seen you in a while. Christian Denmore, hello. What time is it for you right now? It's almost 7 o'clock. About time for me to check on up out of here, man. I'm asking the question, should colleges be allowed to have scrimmages? Me, I think it's a great idea. They do it on every other level in football. Why not college? I think also with the advent of the NIL and the expanded playoffs to recoup some of the money from the colleges, by the colleges, I should say, it's just another break from tradition. And because you're breaking from tradition, why not add these spring games? And the teams benefit because you get a clearer picture of what kind of team you might have coming up in the fall. Embiid average salary is $64 million, $59.64 on a player option for $69. Man, look here, man. Give me a player option for $69,000 and I'm straight. So just imagine what Embiid is doing. But my point is this: once you get the money and you know it's coming in guaranteed, you can pretty much do what you want. Now, on the flip side, take Embiid in the NFL. He can't get away with that in the NFL. You know, they're going to give him an injury settlement, and all that money that he had that wouldn't be guaranteed is going to go away. And guess what you'll see from Embiid? He's going to be taping it up and doing whatever he got to do to get back on the field because he can't get away with that when 60,000. Man, sometimes 6,900 is great, Rick. So I'm just telling you, man. But I don't know, man. But these NBA players is just going to get bigger because they got this TV contract coming up, and they talking about having sign $1 billion contract for some of these guys. And you know, Jokic is going to get his, and the way he's scoring all them points, he really can't do anything about it. And I think Jokic's success is based on tradition. You know, if you got a big fella dominating down low, feed it to him. And when you start to double team, he's going to kick it out. Just so happened, being a former water polo player, he can throw it out there better than any big man you ever seen. So it's an old-fashioned way of playing, inside out. While everybody's trying to shoot all these threes, you pound it down to the big fella, and he's making everything happen with the assist. You got a problem, man. And Jokic is going to get paid because of that. All right, sorry to jump around, but college teams don't scrimmage. No, they don't scrimmage. They scrimmage against each other. And Deion Sanders at Colorado and Fran Brown of Syracuse, they had an agreement where they were going to have practices. I don't know if it was in the fall or the spring, but the NCAA shot it down. And Mike Gundy, the Oklahoma State coach, he pretty much questioned if the NCAA had the authority. And he also brought up the great point that with the fact that these colleges are losing their rivalries due to these super conferences, wouldn't it be great if Oklahoma and State could play in the spring or fall to keep that rivalry alive some kind of way? And I had never thought of that, and I think that is a great point. But they're saying that the reason they turned it down, to answer your question, they say that it's a unfair competitive advantage, pretty much, and it deals with recruiting and taking players away for several days to go and be away from campus. But that's an even flimsy remark, because I saw where Jim Harbaugh, he brought Michigan down to Florida for a week. I know Florida State, every year in training camp, at least since this new coach, Norvell, has been here, they come to Jacksonville for about a week. So what they're saying doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. And this is why Gundy pretty much said that he questioned whether they have the authority, number one, and two, what's the NCAA going to do if they did it anyway? He's basically saying we're going to punch them in the mouth and see what they do. And that's basically, I think, is what's going to happen. But because of all the cameras and stuff, who's to say that they wouldn't find out? But I think you take a school like FAMU and Florida State, a mile apart, who's going to know if they had some scrimmages with each other? I'm sure it's happened over the years. I know there's been some closed door meetings between basketball teams over the years through history. So it's not like it's something that's unheard of. It's just that the NCAA is out of step with all this thing. Yeah, they're full of it, but just like the thumbnail I got on there, that ship that's going down, that's the NCAA. And it's also the same kind of thing happening down here on the high school level. These state associations, they're going by the way of the NCAA because they won't adjust to the future. But I think based on what Gundy is saying, these teams, they're going to start doing it anyway just to see what the NCAA does. All they can do is try to fine them. Do I have to pay the fine? No, I just take you to court and we're extended until you say, man, I don't want to keep paying these court fees. And then, like Gundy said, does it really matter? All right, so should colleges be allowed to scrimmage is the poll question. 100% of you saying that they should be allowed to scrimmage. And like I said, I do agree with that. But it's an ongoing thing, and this is the time for change. So sometimes you have to force change, and I think this is what's going to happen because somehow I think Syracuse and Colorado is going to meet some kind of way and work that out. But we'll keep our eyes on that. But meantime, looking forward to the Final Fours kicking off on Friday. It's been great to see USC because I think they would have beat UConn if Juju Watkins hadn't gotten hurt. But other than that, I don't see anybody beating UConn. South Carolina is a threat, and they're always going to be a threat as long as Staley is there because she's going to get the talent to come play for her. Now, one other quick note about Staley, I saw that the other schools are complaining that Staley and South Carolina are getting a extreme number of calls or slanted in their direction. Duke, they had they got fouled far more than South Carolina did, but yet South Carolina shot far more free throws. As you know, that came down to pretty much a one possession game, and South Carolina won by a bucket. So if the officiation is slanted, that can make all the difference in these tight games. But the way that UConn whipped South Carolina early in the season, I don't care what kind of officiating you got, you better slow that offense down or you're going to get whipped again. But I think this was the year for USC, but sometimes it just don't work out for you. And Juju Watkins going down was critical to them. All right. I think they will practice and see what happens. That's what I think they're going to do. You can't stop it. I mean, 10 years ago, everybody was afraid of the big bad NCAA, but not anymore, man. And it's just a matter of time before we see a reorganization of the approach that they take. All right. But also, I've been saying Duke been the best team for the last month or so, and now they get a chance to prove it. But I'm going to add an addendum to that. Houston, they've been in the Final Four so many times, and something always happens to them. But you know, even the sun shines on the dog some days. And if they were able to get by Duke, they're going to win it all. In short, what I'm telling you is this. The winner of the Duke-Houston game will be cutting down the nets. Mark it down. So until next time, unless I come up with some breaking news, I'll catch you guys in the morning. Appreciate you stopping in on me. Yeah, it's all about the money, and somebody in the NCAA is getting paid off, and they hate it when the underlings get paid. You know, even though you're making $1 million, you want to make $1 billion, and the guy under you, a lot of times they don't want you to make nothing, and it's not fair, but it's just the way they do things, man. So we'll see. But anyway, Duke versus Houston. No, they playing in the semifinals. I'm saying whoever wins that game is going to win the championship. And I think Duke is the best team, but fate might be on Houston's side this time. They lost some heartbreakers over the years in the Final Fours, and even when they were the better team, they didn't win. So sometimes things work in your favor, and it might just be that time for them. They're playing like it anyway. But anyway, Ricks, you guys take it easy, man. Appreciate you chiming in with me. I got to get out of here and go to work, man. So you guys have a great day. In the meantime, I got to go work, man. So I'm out. Got to beat this bell. All right. Let's see what we got here.